Dressed in a beautiful gown, she shouted inappropriate insults.
You're married now, so you're completely a stranger to us. A wedding is a celebration, so we don't have to invite people we don't like. As long as the bride's father is here, that's all that matters.
I knew she hated me, and the fact that we weren't blood related was one of the reasons. There was also probably a clash of personalities. Still, as her stepmother, I tried to fulfill my responsibilities and do what I could for her. That's why I made her dream wedding at the super popular chapel and the reception at a top-tier hotel come true.
We're only celebrating with family, so you can go home now. Thanks for everything.
Sarah's husband, with little financial means, laughed awkwardly as he tried to push me out. I couldn't stand it anymore. If they were going to look down on me and exclude me, I'd make sure they never relied on me again. Finally reaching my breaking point, I quickly left the scene, determined to erase everything that had happened. I'm Emma, 43 years old and the director of a cosmetic surgery clinic. I originally worked as a dermatologist at a university hospital but switched to cosmetic surgery at 38 and opened my own clinic at 40. It wasn't that I was dissatisfied with dermatology. Dermatology is said to offer a relatively easy working environment for female doctors. In fact, it's very helpful for balancing work and family life. I don't have children, but I had a husband with whom I lived for 10 years. He was also a doctor, and we started dating during our training years. As a surgeon, his work grew increasingly demanding, with long surgeries and night shifts. Meanwhile, my work, with fewer physical and mental burdens, allowed me to support him by handling housework after work. Becoming a doctor requires studying every field, as it's impossible to focus on just one. You need to pass the national exam after completing 2 years of clinical training. After that, you choose the specialty you want to pursue. A senior female doctor once advised me that dermatology was a good option if I wanted to continue working after getting married. I didn't have any particular preference, so I chose dermatology and completed 5 years of specialized training. After passing the certification exam, I was finally ready to begin as a specialist. This is the general flow, no matter which field you choose. Sometimes people joke at parties that doctors make a lot of money, but becoming one takes much longer than the average student. The psychological pressure on both the individual and their family is immense. The real challenge begins after passing the exam, when you're entrusted with people's lives and well-being. That's why I don't think it's a profession people should envy so lightly. I took pride in my work and believed I had a good relationship with my husband. But in our 4th year of marriage, I discovered he was having an affair. With his frequent night shifts and absences, I had grown accustomed to him not being home. However, rumors of his affair with a young nurse in the same ward reached me. Nurses are quick to gather information, and their discussions at the nurse's station are not to be underestimated. Eventually, everyone in the ward knew about the affair, and a fellow surgeon who trained with us couldn't bear it any longer and contacted me. That's how I found out everything. We ended up divorcing because of it. At that point, I began to question whether balancing work and family was even necessary anymore. If I was living alone, I could focus more on work, hone my skills, and save money for the future. I even thought about getting multiple cats and building a cat-friendly home. The divorce actually expanded my dreams and ambitions. With skills that span multiple techniques, making patients happy, and earning a good income, I decided to transition to cosmetic surgery. I wanted to bring joy to patients who desired to look beautiful. I wanted to help those lacking confidence to lift their heads and feel more positive through procedures that made him happy. And so my second life began. Opening a clinic requires much higher capital compared to other fields. Even on the conservative side, it costs around $500,000, and if you want cutting-edge medical equipment, it can run up to $1 million. If you're interested in cosmetic surgery, you can probably guess this from the high cost of procedures. Those advanced machines are really expensive. Yet I deeply admire the patients who are willing to work hard and spend money to become beautiful. I find their determination and passion to be noble and beautiful. That's why I never forget to improve myself, so I can continue earning the trust of my patients who have high aesthetic standards. In line with the upgraded medical equipment, we hold study sessions for the staff. We always ensure we've experienced the results ourselves before recommending them to patients. If we're not satisfied, I immediately contact the manufacturer for a new session. Many people think of cosmetic surgery as different from curing illnesses or injuries, but at its core, I believe it's the same. Especially for women with body image issues, cosmetic surgery can also serve as a form of mental healing. It helps them gain confidence, enjoy looking in the mirror, and feel encouraged to go outside. I truly believe this transformation makes them shine even more. Thanks to the many patients willing to pay high fees, we, cosmetic surgeons, are able to maintain a high salary. Elective procedures, which aren't covered by insurance, allow medical institutions to set their own fees, which is a significant advantage. This means I can reflect those fees in my staff's salaries. My staff often use their earnings for beauty treatments like Botox or fillers. Meanwhile, I continue upgrading the clinic's appearance and medical equipment. It creates a positive atmosphere where everyone is motivated to work in a bright, uplifting environment. One day, a young woman rushed in wanting to be beautiful for her wedding. Her name was Mary, and she was still underage. She wasn't sure exactly what procedures she wanted, but seemed anxious to become beautiful. Since she was underage, the staff counselor asked if her guardian would be okay with it.
My father is the only one, but I'll convince him.
I decided to listen carefully to her story. Mary said she wanted to be beautiful for her wedding, but after talking more, it turned out the wedding date hadn't even been set yet. She was engaged to her boyfriend through a verbal agreement, but they hadn't met each other's parents yet.
He's such a wonderful guy. I definitely don't want to lose him.
Mary, you already have a lovely face, but are there any specific areas you're concerned about or would like to change?
I'll do anything to become beautiful.
You're not overweight, and you're still young, so anti-aging treatments aren't necessary. Maybe brightening your skin tone or hair removal? I didn't want to suggest too many treatments at once, as it might come across as pushy.
I want bigger eyes, a straighter nose, and a slimmer face. And making my skin look beautiful sounds good too.
It seemed like she wanted an overall makeover. Doing too much before a wedding can change her face significantly, and I was concerned about how her fiancé might react, but I couldn't say too much. I knew that no amount of reassurance from others could fully satisfy a girl's desire to be beautiful. Cosmetic surgery is, in a way, like cosplay or magic that fulfills a transformation wish, and I think it's a wonderful thing. Even if I thought she didn't need it, I couldn't say that out loud. I wanted to help her achieve a more beautiful version of herself, without making her look like someone else. You seem to want a lot of different treatments, but may I ask what your budget is, Mary? Honestly, I found it hard to believe an underage girl could gather tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I have about $10,000.
With that amount, we could do double eyelid surgery and a few skin brightening injections before the wedding.
I'll convince my dad to give me more money.
I exchanged glances with the counselor. I wondered what kind of wealthy father she had. She seemed a bit immature for her age, and I began to doubt if she was truly ready for marriage. But since she seemed serious, I told her we need her guardian's consent first. A week later, Mary returned with her father. The waiting room was mostly full of women, and her father looked visibly uncomfortable.
I brought my dad with me. His name is Michael.
And please, have a seat. I'm the director of this clinic. Your daughter mentioned she'd like to have some facial treatments for her wedding. Are you aware of this?
I thought she was going on a diet.
I am, but I also want to make my face prettier.
How much is this going to cost?
You could think of it as a replacement for bridal beauty treatments. Since the conversation wasn't going anywhere, I decided to ask directly. Have you decided on a date for the wedding?
Not yet. We haven't booked a venue.
Have you met the groom yet?
No, but I'll bring him tomorrow. He's a doctor, so he's busy.
As I listened more, I realized Mary was desperate because the marriage was her dream, and she didn't want to lose him. I personally thought that if a little cosmetic surgery would determine the success of a marriage, he wasn't the right person to marry. But I couldn't deny Mary's desire to marry her beloved boyfriend.
You've landed a doctor as a fiancé, so you don't want to lose him, right?
His comment bothered me, but it wasn't my place to interfere with their family matters. I wrote her a chart while the other patients began to arrive in the waiting room. For a brief moment, it was just me, Mary, and her father in the room.
Doctor, are you married?
Excuse me?
Dad, what are you saying? Oh, are you trying to flirt with the doctor because you're single?
You be quiet for a second.
I'm currently single, yes. Why do you ask? His face brightened at my response. He must have noticed that I wasn't wearing a ring while I was writing in the chart.
Please take care of my daughter. Also, if you're free, I'd love to treat you to dinner sometime.
When he handed me his business card, all I could do was smile politely, but I didn't feel particularly offended. Judging by his appearance, he seemed like a regular office worker, but that didn't really matter to me. There was something endearing about his courage to ask, probably because we both shared the experience of being single. I thought maybe we could at least be friends. That's how I first got to know my second husband. I never imagined he would continue accompanying Mary to every one of her appointments, or that after our first dinner, he would propose to me with the intent of marriage. It was unexpected. But somehow meeting him reminded me of how lonely I had felt, even though I had been so focused on work that I hadn't realized it. The excitement of meeting someone, the joy of sharing a meal, the happiness of laughing together, these were feelings I had long forgotten. As Mary became more beautiful, my relationship with her father, Michael, also deepened. Finally, we decided to get remarried as two single parents. I was looking forward to starting a happy second life together. But reality didn't go as smoothly as I had hoped. As soon as we started living together, Mary, who had been so supportive of our relationship, became cold towards me. Many women struggle with the dynamics of remarriage when a stepchild is involved, especially when the stepchild is a teenage girl. The relationship between a stepmother and a stepdaughter can be particularly difficult. Generally, by the time kids reach their late teens, they've matured enough that they don't lash out irrationally. It's thought that the older the child is, the less likely they'll have conflicts with a step-parent after remarriage. However, Mary, despite being 19, seemed emotionally immature for her age. Considering how close she was to her father, it wasn't surprising that she saw me as an intruder. Maybe I had pushed too hard to close the gap between us, and that was my mistake. Not having raised children myself, I had no idea what to do in such a situation. I ended up consulting one of my staff members, who was a mother.
I went through a tough time when I married my current husband, and my stepchild didn't accept me.
Oh, really?
Honestly, there's no magic solution. Adolescents are tough to handle, even for their biological parents. It's easy to blame yourself for not connecting with them, but it's not always about you.
I'm feeling exactly that right now. I keep wondering why she won't open up to me.
Sometimes teenagers don't want to open up to any adult, not even their own parents. In some cases, relationships between parents and children fall apart during adolescence. The fact that you and Mary don't have a long history together makes it even harder.
I thought I needed to be extra considerate because we lacked that shared time and bond. But the difference between my approach at the clinic with patients and dealing with Mary at home threw me off balance.
She could just be overwhelmed by all the changes happening in her life right now. You mentioned that her parents are divorced, and she's been through a lot of changes recently.
That's true. Her parents' divorce, her father's remarriage, and now her own upcoming wedding. It's a lot to handle.
Exactly. Even the most easygoing and cheerful child might struggle with sudden family changes.
I've never had children, so I imagined it would be fun to have a daughter, to go shopping together, or to have tea. But maybe that was just my own idealistic fantasy.
Sometimes parents have unrealistic expectations, and when things don't go as planned, they get frustrated.
I suppose I'm feeling exactly that frustration now.
Children don't really care about their stepmom's ideals. Some even find it annoying.
The term stepmom makes me think of the wicked stepmothers from Cinderella, forcing her to do chores and not letting her go to the ball.
Right? No wonder kids don't always take to the idea of a stepmother.
I'm trying my best to befriend her, but sometimes it feels like the more effort I put in, the worse it gets.
I think the harder you try to get close, the more it can backfire, especially with teenagers.
I've been taking care of her, but when she compares me to her biological mom or makes negative remarks, it's hard not to get upset. And Michael, he doesn't seem to be getting involved. He's kind, but when things get tense between Mary and me, he just ignores it, watching TV or retreating to his room.
A lot of men don't know how to handle conflicts between women. They're not on the same wavelength as us when it comes to these things.
That's true. I think that's why he says things like, she'll get married soon, so don't worry about it. It's not a real solution.
Maybe the best approach is to give Mary space. Let her come to you when she's ready.
You're right. I think I'll take a step back and give her room. I'll continue to live my life fully and not force things with her. If she says something really hurtful, I'll stand my ground, but I won't make a fuss. And when she gets married, I'll sincerely wish her well. That's all I can do. I married Michael, so I need to focus more on our relationship. But that wasn't easy either. When we first met, Michael admired my job and thought my white coat was impressive. He said he loved having a wife who could earn a good income and praised me to no end. But over time, as a regular businessman, he started feeling insecure about his lower income. Eventually, his frustrations turned toward me. For example, he started nitpicking about housework, pointing out every little thing I missed. Since I was rarely home, things like a bit of dust on the floor were common. I figured whoever noticed it could clean up, but he made a point to bring it up. He'd say things like, oh, the doctor is too busy to notice a bit of a trash on the floor. Or, yeah, those who make the money can't do the housework, right? It was as if he was offering me understanding, but his remarks were laced with sarcasm. By pointing out my supposed failures as a wife, he seemed to be soothing his own insecurities. He also had a strong bias against cosmetic surgery, believing it was a lower-ranked specialty compared to others like neurosurgery or cardiology. This wasn't just Michael's opinion. I've heard it from others too, including fellow doctors. What defines a higher or lower-ranked specialty anyway? Neurosurgery might be seen as the most challenging, given its complexity and direct impact on patients' lives, but that doesn't mean other specialties aren't difficult. Surgery is often seen as tough because of the long hours and high responsibility, but does that mean obstetrics isn't hard? Obstetricians work with unpredictable schedules and sleepless nights. People might think dermatology or ophthalmology are easier because they deal with fewer life-threatening cases. But have you ever seen a line of elderly patients waiting outside a clinic early in the morning? Even for seemingly routine visits, these clinics are packed, and managing that workload isn't easy. My point is, no medical field is easy, and that's my belief. But Michael was convinced that surgery was at the top. Mary's fiancé is a pediatrician, and Michael had this strange belief that pediatrics was second in line behind surgery because of the emotional rewards. I couldn't bring myself to tell him the truth. There's a ranking of doctors' average incomes by specialty published by the Labor Policy Research Institute. The average income for surgeons is around $137,400, which is about $10,000 more than the average across all specialties. Half of the surgeons in the country earn over $150,000, and in the metropolitan area, many doctors earn more than $200,000. As Michael liked to point out, the high pay for surgeons reflects the life and death nature of their work and the responsibility that comes with it. On the other hand, pediatricians earn about $120,000 a year. While the income reflects the hard work, it's not always enough for the intensity of the job. But this is all about doctors working under insurance-covered treatments. Since I opened my own clinic and it's been running successfully, my income exceeded $500,000 last year. Doctors in large private practices make even more. I never shared the exact numbers with Michael, but I quietly covered all the costs for Mary's wedding. Mary's fiancé came from a family of doctors, and all his relatives were in the medical field. Knowing this, Michael, a regular salaryman, would likely feel lower ranked in comparison, as he liked to put it. To ensure he didn't feel embarrassed at the wedding, I paid for everything, and I intended to give them a generous gift when they moved into their new home. But as I kept giving financial support, Mary's thank you disappeared, and in its place, she started saying shocking things.
No matter how much you try, you can never be a pediatrician. Cosmetic surgery is just superficial. There's no point in even trying to compete.
Compete? I never once thought of competing with your fiancé. Doctors are all the same, no more, no less. I happened to be making more money, but that didn't make me superior, and I never thought of myself that way. But the way she talked made it sound like I was flaunting my success. I was just trying to support Mary, yet somehow everything I did seemed to backfire. I couldn't believe this was the same girl who had once begged me to make her beautiful. I found myself counting down the days of her wedding, wishing she'd leave the house as soon as possible. I wanted her to experience firsthand that being married to a doctor wasn't all that easy. As much as my work had been belittled, I knew she'd soon realize how difficult it is. Mary had been so eager to show off her wedding at a popular chapel and a top-tier hotel, venues that were clearly beyond the means of a family with a salary under $40,000 a year. Even the wedding planner must have picked up on that. In the end, I had to step in and negotiate with the hotel and secure the reservation myself. The venue required a large number of guests, which Mary didn't have, but I made it happen for her. I wanted her to have her dream wedding, to feel like a gorgeous bride on the most important day of her life. It was my way of apologizing for the tension between us and hoping it might improve our relationship. On the wedding day, Mary appeared in a princess-like gown, her face perfectly lifted and glowing, thanks to the treatments I had provided at a family discount. She didn't even say thank you. But today she was radiant. I hoped that one day when she matured and faced hardships of her own, she would realize how much I had tried to bond with her. As I watched her walk down the aisle, I silently wished her well. The chapel had a serene atmosphere with beautiful stained glass. I suddenly remembered that Michael and I had never had a wedding ceremony. We moved in together right after the wedding and never even had a small celebration. I would have liked a party, at least, to mark the occasion. Mary was beaming as she exchanged vows and slipped the ring onto her finger. During the break between the ceremony and the reception, I checked my phone for news and work-related messages. That's when I noticed a message from one of my staff members sent late the previous night. I had gone to bed early preparing for today, so I missed it. When I opened the message, I was shocked by what it said. Apparently, they had found Mary's social media account. I knew I shouldn't look, but there was the link right in front of me. "I'm sorry," I silently apologized as I clicked the link. The first post that popped up was a photo of Mary's wedding dress with the caption, "Getting married today." She had even tagged the venue. There was no doubt it was our account. As I scrolled down, I found numerous posts complaining about Michael and even more about me.
"I don't care if she's a cosmetic surgeon or whatever, but she's a failure as a stepmom."
I felt like collapsing into my chair.
"Sure, she buys fancy food from the department store, but does that woman even know how to cook?"
I had bought those meals hoping to make Mary happy, assuming she wouldn't want home-cooked food from someone she wasn't close to. Yet everything I had done had backfired. I thought she'd appreciate the famous department store meals, but clearly it had the opposite effect.
"I bet she feels guilty for being a terrible stepmom, which is why she's always buying me whatever I want."
I felt a wave of exhaustion wash over me. Everything I had done had been for nothing.
"I even jokingly asked for a wedding at the most popular chapel and a reception at a 5-star hotel, and she actually booked it."
The careful thought I put into ensuring Mary and Michael wouldn't feel out of place at such a prestigious wedding seemed pointless now. Mary's attitude made me think she would eventually wear out her fiancé's patience, no matter how perfect their relationship seemed now. Mary's fiancé was from a wealthy family, the youngest son and a pediatrician, a kind man who clearly loved children. His job required a great deal of empathy and the ability to read subtle signs of discomfort or pain in his young patients. I doubted he could overlook Mary's immaturity for long. Pediatricians often have to deal with late-night emergencies as children tend to get sick at inconvenience times, like on weekends or in the middle of the night. I knew that being married to a pediatrician would mean Mary would have to spend a lot of time alone. I didn't think Mary was ready for that kind of lifestyle. In about 20 minutes, the reception was going to start, but I sat in the waiting room, lost in thought. I decided that this would be the last time I financially supported Mary. I was drained. Just then, Mary, now wearing a pink reception dress, appeared in front of me.
"Well, I did it. I got married. I'm moving in with him, so you and I are completely strangers now. Yay!"
Was she mocking me? I was never your mother in the first place. You never accepted me. Suddenly, Michael stepped between us. Finally, he's going to stand up for me, I thought. Maybe now that Mary was married, he would focus on our relationship. But my hopes were crushed in an instant.
"The reception is for close friends and family only, so, Emma, you can go home."
What do you mean? I'm your wife. Aren't I family? Mary's triumphant smirk was infuriating, and I bit my lip, determined not to cry.
Well, technically, we haven't filed a marriage certificate yet, so...
We had started living together, but with both of us being busy, we hadn't yet submitted the paperwork. It hadn't felt urgent with my clinic being so busy, especially during the wedding season. So I'm just a stranger?
Yeah, today made it clear to me that you're not part of this family. My husband's family is full of doctors, all well respected. They're on a whole different level.
Michael had always been obsessed with who was higher ranked or lower ranked, and now it seemed he has shifted his allegiance to Mary's new family. So I'm not family and not welcome at the celebration, right? I grabbed the pearl necklace I was wearing, yanked it off, and threw it at Mary's feet. These were real, expensive pearls, the kind Michael couldn't afford. I kicked off my heels, scattering them across the floor like Cinderella throwing off her slippers. Barefoot and smiling, I turned to Mary and Michael. Well, this is goodbye. Take care. Ignoring the mess I left behind, I marched to the exit. I asked the staff to help me change out of the dress, telling them the bride had told me to leave, much to their confusion. I quickly changed into my clothes, returned the rental dress, and thanked the staff for their assistance. Outside, I wondered how Mary and Michael would explain this empty seat where the bride's mother should have been, but it wasn't my problem anymore. The reception would last at least 2 hours, followed by greetings and farewells to the guests. By the time they got home, it would be 3 or 4 hours later. I had always thought of our house as temporary, with most of my belongings stored in a rented space until Michael and I found a permanent place. Now that seemed like a blessing. I could pack up and leave without much hassle. Why did I ever assume I would be the one buying us a house? I gathered my suitcase, Boston bag, and backpack, all the essentials, and left. Luckily, we hadn't submitted the marriage certificate, so there was no paperwork to deal with. But I felt hollow. Everything seemed meaningless. I dropped off my things at the clinic and quickly rented a monthly apartment to stay in. Work was busy and I couldn't afford to take time off, so this arrangement would have to do for now. The image of Mary and Michael's smug faces haunted me. Without me, they wouldn't be able to maintain their lifestyle of luxury, but they'd have to manage on their own now. I also wondered how they would handle the floral arrangements at the reception, which had gone over budget. I wasn't responsible for paying for that anymore. I was a stranger now. Less than a month later, Michael and Mary showed up at the clinic. If you don't have an appointment, please leave.
Emma, we need you. We can't make it without you. The flower bill for the reception was astronomical. Please help us cover it.
My assistant, who was well aware of the situation, glared at Mary. Who's the breadwinner? Your breadwinner is Michael. That's how it was before I came along. It's always been that way. As I calmly said this, Michael clung to me.
You make more than me. That's why we had such an amazing wedding. I'm really grateful for everything you've done. Right, Mary?
Yes, I'm super grateful.
Such a hollow thank you. You told me I wasn't family, remember? You told me to leave. I reached for a surgical instrument, the cool metal glinting under the light. You said I wasn't part of the family because I'm just a cosmetic surgeon, right? My assistant raised her voice in shock.
Did they really say that?
She glared even harder at Michael and Mary, clearly no longer considering them clients.
Sarah, we realize now how much you did for us. We were wrong. Please come back. You're the backbone of our family.
I'm not part of your family. We never filed the marriage paperwork, remember? And why would Mary want me back? Isn't she living with her husband now?
That fell through. The wedding didn't work out.
What? You're divorced already?
No, we never filed a marriage certificate. After the reception, we were supposed to submit it, but it didn't happen.
I was speechless. Mary had spent the entire reception insulting me, and now it seemed that the marriage wasn't even finalized.
After you left the reception, the groom's family asked where Mary's mother had gone. When Mary explained that you weren't her biological mother and that you were just a cosmetic surgeon, the groom was furious.
He broke off the wedding because of that?
Yes, it turned out there was a cosmetic surgeon in his family too.
So he wasn't just angry about the insult. He also knew the value of my profession. In the end, he called off the marriage.
That's right. It didn't work out, and it's all because of that comment.
It's your fault.
My fault? You were the one who insulted me and threw me out of the wedding. And now you expect me to cover the cost of the flowers? You need to pay for that yourselves. I wasn't about to let them get away with more handouts. The assistant chimed in.
Should I call the police? This is harassment. No, please don't. Mary, we're leaving.
Michael practically dragged Mary out of the clinic, and I felt a wave of relief wash over me.
Well, let's tighten security. We can hire a guard just for the clinic entrance.
My assistant was already making calls to the building's management to arrange extra security. That night, Mary continued to call, leaving messages about how desperate they were to cover the flower bill. Pay it yourselves. There's nothing more for me to say. It might be time to block her number. 2 years later, my income has risen to over $800,000 a year. I'm living alone in the perfect home and continuing to enjoy my work. I know my income won't always stay high, but I'm committed to constantly improving and adapting. My loyal assistant is currently in South Korea researching the latest trends in cosmetic surgery. Now that I'm older, I want to focus on anti-aging procedures that bring joy to others. As for Michael, I honestly couldn't care less about what he's doing now. Apparently, he tried to show up at the clinic a few more times, only to be stopped by our security guard. I don't know what happened to him or Mary, but I hope they're happy wherever they are. Meanwhile, I'm about to fulfill a long-time dream, adopting 2 rescue cats. I can't wait.